Hey everyone, Retire on Dividends here. Today's video, I'm going to cover basically talking about my daily spreadsheets. As you know, as most of you know, I do daily videos and I cover tsly and Coney, and I also cover qqqy and JEPI. And both, the Yield Max funds and Defiance funds have their own spreadsheet, but when I cover them, I typically cover them pretty fast, and I don't really necessarily get into the nitty-gritty of the spreadsheets. So after a lot of the same feedback, where people, they're basically asking me to make a video to detail what, everything is essentially in the spreadsheet. That's what I'm doing now. That's, obviously I'm making the time to do that now. So I'll cover the spreadsheet for tsly, which is the same as Coney, so I don't need to do both. And then I'll cover the spreadsheet for qqqy, which is the same as JEPI. All right, so yeah, a video about spreadsheets. Can't get much boring than that, right? Never mind. No, I actually enjoy this. So this is the new and improved, maybe, improved in quotes, tsly spreadsheet. So first tab is the synthetic position. So everything about this tab is about the synthetic. Within the tab name, I'll have the strike price of the synthetic, which is 240 in this example. And then starting from the top, I'll be adding the positions, which includes opening the position. So the date is essentially the activity date of the transaction when it was done. The contracts is the number of contracts that they're trading. Each contract is 100 shares. The trade price is how much they paid to open each position per share. The call and put values are what is calculated, when you take the number of contracts, times them by 100, and then multiply that by the trade price. So if you look, in this example for the call, they paid $22.15 per share. So if you look at the call calculation, obviously there's an if formula in there, but to keep it simple, it's contracts times 100 times 22.15. And it's a debit amount, a red amount, because this is what they had to pay. When you buy a call, you're paying the premium. And then if you look down below the put has a negative, so there's a credit. We get a credit of $15.26 per share. So in order to calculate the amount for the put, you do, pretty much the same process. You just take the number of contracts, multiply that by 100, and then times it by the trade price. And we get a credit of the 49 million as shown. So that's what's done every time they open a synthetic position, and then the transactions below, these are adding or removing from the synthetic position. So if you see a positive 140, a positive 385, like right here, this is increasing the synthetic position, which eventually on the bottom will add up to the total amount of, contracts. And then column F has net profit. So net being positive, profit being negative and loss being positive. So if you look, it starts off with the 71 million debit, right? So we're in the hole already. But then we got a $49 million credit. So now we have a $22 million debit. And then as they open more positions, we'll add in the debits, the credits, the debits, the credits, until we go down to the last transaction, which was done December 4th. Again, this is just at the time I'm doing this video. Dates are irrelevant for this purpose, but the current, amount that has been paid out was 21 million, right? So we're in the hole 21 million. But if the green, what I have in the green is I always put, if you look at the holdings under the YieldMax website, each fund has the holdings. It'll show you the value of the call and the put for the synthetic. So all I do is each day when I do the video, I plug in the new value. So 1353, that represents the value of the call. 1622, that represents the value of the put. But the difference here is, since we bought the call, now we can sell. Like if we're in the profit, we can sell it for money. So we can sell our call for 1353 per share. So if you take the number of contracts times 100 times 1353, we can make 45 million on that. but we have to close out our put position. So in order to do that, same process. Take the number of contracts times 100 times the 1622 price. And that would be a $54 million debit. And then if you look, 30 million is the ending number because it'll cost us, we would end in a net loss. I mean, in summary, we would end in a net loss. And that's mainly because Tesla price is below the strike price of the synthetic. But the synthetic expires January 19th, 2024. So they would typically be in no rush to close out this position anyway, unless they wanted to clear out some data, some numbers before year end. I noticed Coney did something like that, but they're in, their calls are in the hole. If tsly is making money on their short calls, then they may not need to do anything. They won't make a profit anyway, so they're probably, like in this example, they're going to let this go into January, and then they'll probably roll it. Again, and when they roll it into the new synthetic position, they always pick at the money, which means at the price of the stock, the underlying stock. So if Tesla's at 230 when they roll it, they'll open the new synthetic position at 230. That'll cost them money, but that's what they do. All right, so that's the synthetic tab. Hopefully that made sense. Calls, this is basically everything. This is the majority of the information. And again, keep in mind, this is a work in progress. So when you're watching this video and you still watch my daily videos, if I added something new, I apologize, but that may happen. But this is what it currently looks like. On the top, you'll see it starts with tsly price. This is based on the last close, or if the market's open, it's based on the current price. And then right next to it, column D is Tesla, and then Tesla's price. Again, at the time of the video, 235, but again, as of the close, because right now the market's closed. Outstanding shares, I update this manually. Yeah, these two are formulas, by the way. It does, it pulls the price of this cell, which I tell it to. But this, I have to update manually based on, I go to the holdings, the outstanding holdings for the ETF each day. And it changes pretty frequently. So that's the number of outstanding shares. Income, this is the total income that they generated, or it could be a loss. But basically, if you look, this is a formula. So, and it's N70, it's minus N70 because I flipped the signage. I wanted to make it a positive. I know it's maybe confusing, but I just wanted to, when it comes to payout calculations, I'd rather have it look that way. But income is what I say, cell N something, all the way on the bottom, right? N70. So as you can see, it picks up the same number, 9,232, N70, 9,232,295. So that is, again, that's just a formula which adds up all the profit and loss each day. Distribution, that's a simple formula. It takes the income divided by outstanding shares, so I don't have to do anything there. That's showing 13 cents, which would be the amount of the distribution. If we got paid out, if the month closed right now, that's how much they would be able to pay us out. They could do what they want, but that's what I'm showing based on the numbers. Daily income, this just takes the distribution of 13 cents and divides it by the number of days that had activity. In this example, we had 12/1 and we had 12/4, and that was it. So that's 2 days. Moving along, that's it. There's room for more data, so I will probably add information as I go along. But, I didn't rush that because I'm still, I just changed to these spreadsheets, so it's still even new to me. So now, moving along, actually, I wanted to make these cells so it's only 2 lines. There you go. Moving along to row 3, if you see that activity date, all that means is the date of the transaction. So the date the transaction was done. ETF close price, so if you go to like 12/4, for example, that's the close price on 12/4. So at the end of the market close on 12/4, the ETF close price would be 11.58. Okay, and in this example, as I go through these, I'll reference row 8, by the way, because this was the most current date. And then the gains, all that does is takes the latest close price minus the last close price divided by the last close price. And that'll tell you how much it gained from the last close price, which in this example, it did not have a gain, it had a loss. That's why it's negative 0.43%. And then if you look here, it's the same thing. Underlying stock price, underlying close price, it's just the close price of the underlying. Same thing with gains, nothing new there. It just does the same calculation. That way, the point of that is to see the comparison between the underlying stock and the ETF. Expiration date, this will be filled in when there's an actual call, a short call that is traded, an options call. So if you look on row 8 again, I have an expiration date of 12/8. So on this date, they actually opened a new position. They sold 630 contracts. They sold a call. So if they did not, this would be blank. And then obviously contracts is the number of contracts they traded. Open price, this is how much they made when they decided to sell that call. Because when you sell calls, you collect the premium. There's a buyer out there that's willing to pay you. Then the close price, that'll be filled in when that position is closed with the amount that they had to pay to close it. Because typically they roll these positions every Friday and then they start a new position. And then in order to roll these positions, they have to close them. So, it all depends on where the underlying price is at the time. So the close could cost more than what we made in the open price, or it could cost less. It depends on where it stands. But since this is a bearish play, we want the underlying to be below the strike price. So if it's below the strike price, typically the close price will not be that much money and we could be profitable on the transaction. The strike price, as you may know, this is just the strike price they choose. So in the example of row 8, again, they chose 247.50, which is a price, as you can see, as of current date, is above the price of Tesla. Tesla price cell E1, 235.58. So they sold a call that expires on 12/8 with a strike price of 247.50, and they got a premium for it. They basically said, I'll buy 600, I'll sell, I'll sell you my shares, 630 contracts worth for 247.50 by 12/8. And so if the price of Tesla goes above that, then the buyer will make money. If the price of Tesla stays under that, then guess what? Us, being the owner of the ETF, we make money because they're not gonna want this. The buyer's not gonna want it for 247.50 if Tesla's at 240, right? So again, this is the seller collects a premium amount, for basically saying, okay, I'll sell you these shares, and the buyer has the obligation to, execute their position. But obviously we don't let these get assigned. What they do is they typically close out the positions in cash. They would pay the difference. All right, moving on, next column, percent out of money, column K. This is just doing a comparison of, you'll see J minus D. Scrolling along, D is the underlying price, but so it's J, where is it? J8, yep, strike price minus D8, which is the close price, right? And typically on that date, we don't know what the underlying price was at the time they made the trade. But what I do is I just take the close price, because typically it's around the close when they make the transaction, my guess. But if we take strike minus the underlying price, and then you divide that by the underlying price, this shows it's 5.06 greater, which means it's 5.06% out of the money. In the money would be less if the strike price is less than the underlying. So that typically they'll sell calls, out of the money, or, very rare at the money. I haven't even seen an at the money unless they had to, unless they're in the hole. All right, call credit. This is pretty simple. This is basically taking the contracts multiplied times 100 multiplied by times the trade price. So column G times 100 times column H, and that's the credit that they get. So going back to row 8, they got $84,000. So 84,420. Call debit, same thing. Once that close price is entered, this will do a calculation based on the same trend, same amounts. Contracts times 100 times close price. Right now, we're showing a profit of 84,420. All this cell does is adds L and M, but this is an open position, so it's not a done deal. This, once come Friday, we'll know if this is truly a profit or loss, but right now we're showing a credit of 84,000. Running total, if you go from the top, we started with 8.5 million based on our first transaction, and then each day we add in the new profit or loss. So right now it's just all open positions, so it's all profits, and as the call debit values get updated, the running total will get updated. And then, the running total represents the as-at income, and which matches to K1, which matches to, the subtotal on the bottom of column N. Okay, last but not least on this tab is cash and treasuries. I mean, it's pretty simple. We have cash, which is under the holdings. So each day they'll post the new holdings, which have a date of the next day. So in this example, if you want to see the holdings at end of day for December 4th, you would look for the holdings that actually reflect 12/5. But again, I keep the cash still under the 12/4 date. So whether right or wrong, this is just a preference for the person, I guess. So you'll see 47.7 million, and then treasuries 382 million approximately for each. They only have two treasury positions, one that expires the end of this year and the other expires late next year. So they'll pay out what they earn on these treasuries, probably, my guess, like the 12/31, when they close, when that's over, when that expires, they'll have some interest accrued. And I don't know what it'll be, but I'm sure they'll pay that in the January payment. That's just my guess. And by the way, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for fun and entertainment. Net assets is really simple. It's cash plus treasuries. And then the change is basically the change from one day to the next. So nothing complicated there. So hopefully that explained the call tab. Moving on to the active tab. So this tab, this is really even more simple. It's just the active contracts. It's all of the active contracts that are open. So if you go back to like the call tab, this is breaking down the contracts. There's 4 of them. But since 3 of them have the same strike, I'm not talking about trade prices in this tab. I'm just talking about contracts and strike price and expiration date. So that's why there's only 2 rows. So this is the outstanding contracts. Again, this is just a summary, so we can talk about at the end of the video where are we at? Where do we stand? How are we looking? And like in this example, both strikes are above the Tesla price. By the way, this says tsly price. This is actually Tesla price. How come no one caught that for me? Come on, guys. You guys pretty much catch everything, which is pretty good. Which, I do make mistakes, obviously. So, but yeah, the Tesla price is 235, and both of the contracts have a strike above that, 4% out of the money, 5% out of the money. So this is a good thing. Then I have the 30-day IV. This is a calculation automatically via, look at this, I don't even know what half of that says, but I stole it from someone else's spreadsheet. So that's the 30-day IV. I believe it's the latest 30 days. And then the 30-day chart, this just shows, a chart of how the price has moved on tsly and Tesla. The point of that is just to show, making sure they're kind of in line. Kind of pointless, probably. I could probably get rid of it. No one would miss it. Then I have on the bottom here, 1158, that's just the Tesla price. This is new. This may not be there forever, but this just shows how much we could possibly gain based on the current positions. Like if Tesla went up, what is our maximum gains? And this may or may not be accurate, but this is just something I added in addition as like kind of like a test. But that may or may not be part of the spreadsheet when you're watching this video. Last but not least, I have the reaction section, which just shows how I feel about where they stand on their positions, whether happy or sad or angry or puking, could be anything, right? So, but yeah, that'll definitely remain on the spreadsheet. People like that. So that is it with the tsly spreadsheet. Hopefully that made sense for everyone. And if not, let me know in the comment section how, what you guys think, or what questions you have. But also on this video, I'm not sure I can even talk anymore. I didn't realize how long this would take, is I'm covering the Defiance ETF spreadsheet. And this example is qqqy spreadsheet. So look at cell 4. See how it's so annoying. If I delete row 3, I wonder if that'll get rid of it. Delete row. Let's see what happens now. No, it's still ugly. Yeah, I don't know. See how it shrinks it. All right, so let me get a sip of water. Okay, so covering the qqqy spreadsheet, the NDX at the top, this shows the current price of the NASDAQ. Outstanding shares are right next to it. Again, this is just manually filled in. They don't show their outstanding shares, though, on the holdings. They show it on their website. And typically, the website doesn't get updated every day. Income, this shows the total amount of income that they have made, which, similar to the other spreadsheet, is the profit loss, total value. So if we look at the cell, it's R37. So if I go to R, see, all the way on the bottom, R37 is adding up the total profit and loss. So that is the as at income for every time I do a video. Distribution represents the income divided by shares. I noticed I didn't flip the income on this one. Maybe, I guess I should probably fix tsly. Anyway, moving on. So that's the total distribution you would get per share as of the current day. QQQY, this just shows the the current price of the QQQY. Again, that's a formula based on the last close date, or if the market's open, it's based on the current price. Average daily premium takes the total distribution divided by number of days that they have had trades. They do trades daily, so obviously I have more than the other sheet because they had 4 days already. And it shows 0, because it only goes out 2 decimals, and if you look at the distribution, it's not even a penny. Wins and losses, total contract wins, meaning total contracts ending in a profit, and then total contracts ending in a loss. That's pretty simple. That's a manual entry right there. And then we have extrinsic income, which is basically adding up the field column O, which is the extrinsic income. It's all the way on the bottom, similar to the profit. And then extrinsic distribution just takes that income divided by the outstanding shares. Finishing the top part, the deck date, I have all the dates, all 4 dates. Deck date, which is the declaration date when the distribution is announced. X date, which is the date that you'll actually see the impact in the share price. The distribution will be deducted from the actual share price. So this is the date you need to own 1 day prior to qualify for the distribution, being 12/27. Record date, this is more so for the fund. This is where they record what they're paying out. It's 1 day after the X date. And then the pay date, this is the date you should typically get paid, unless you have Charles Schwab. In that example, they would just, for some reason, pay you the next day or pay you later in the day, or, but whatever. Annual yield. This is what, based on the current income, it would calculate, take the distribution, multiply by times 12, and then divide it by the current price of the qqqy. Average daily yield, it basically just takes the daily premium, and divides it by the price of the fund. We covered losses and we covered extrinsic distribution. So, all right, moving down below, expiration date. This is the as they make new positions, I will add them via expiration date. So if you look at the last transactions, like expiration date of 12/4, I added that the day prior, because they typically, do 1 day. They sell puts that expire 1 day later. So on 12/3, I would have entered this information. Also, for the 12/4 close, I would add in the ETF close price, which again, it matches to the close of the market. And then the gains compares the last day close versus the prior day. So in that example of row 9, there was a loss, so it shows negative. Number of contracts, this just shows how many contracts they opened their position for. And then, so if there's multiple contracts, like if there's different positions that have multiple contracts, I would have a separate row for that, even if I have to have the same expiration date. So like 12/4 has 2 rows because there's 2 positions. And the reason for that is that there's different open prices. So that 113 contracts where they sold a put and they got $64 premium. And then there's another row where you see 53 contracts. They actually made $66.50 on that one. Again, it all depends on the timing. Close price, in this example, it's actually filled in, but this would be the amount that cost them to close out the position. So in this particular example, it did not work in their favor. So they had to pay out more than what they originally gained. So this particular one ends up in a loss. So they paid $180 per share, but only received $64 in premium. So the net loss is the combination of the two. Strike price is what the position was, like what they sold a put at this strike price. And selling a put, unlike the call, selling a put is bullish. So typically they would want the price of the NASDAQ to go above the strike price. And when they sold the put, it was 0.14% in the money. And this example of in the money means it's already, when you sell a put, when you sell, you collect a premium. But when you sell a put, you're basically saying you're willing to buy it at a certain price. So if you're willing to buy it at $16,020 and then it expires above that price, then, it's, hold on a second, I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, selling a put, you're willing to buy it. Yeah, you're willing to buy it at that certain price. So you don't own shares necessarily. But when you sell a put, again, since it's a bullish play, you want the strike price to go above your price, because if it goes above your price, then you're not going to buy it. You don't have to buy it. If it goes below your strike price, then guess what? You have to cover. In this example, on these funds, they don't buy anything, just so you know. But if they sell a put of $16,020 and it goes below $16,020, they're going to cover that gap. So if it goes to $16,000, it's $20. That's what they have to cover in cash. In this example, the index close price, I'll skip to column J. It closed at $15,839. So this close price, they had to cover the gap, right? That 180 is 16,020 minus 15,839. They had to pay that per share. But if the index close price at column J was above 16,020, that would be zero. The close price would be zero. So yeah, selling put, bullish play. But obviously that was a bearish day. Percent in the money, we just covered that. Anything above the underlying price is considered in the money. So this was priced at 0.14% above the underlying price. 15,956 in this example, break even. Break even, all that means is, if you look at the formula, it takes the strike price of 16,020 and it adds the credit that we got for the premium. And the premium was 64. So in this example, strike price, minus the difference of the premium, that would be the break even. Because if we had to pay out $64, then it's a wash, meaning break even. Index close, we kind of covered that before. And then gains, we kind of covered that. Missed out gains, this is pretty simple. It's anything, selling puts is a bullish play. However, we don't want it to go too far up. So if we sell a strike price of 16,020, we want it to end around 16,020. We don't want it to end at 17,000 because then those are gains that we missed out on. If we sold a put with a strike of 17,000, then fine. But since we sold a put at 16,020, that would be missed out gains. This is just for informational purposes, the missed out gains. In case you guys are wondering, like, is it better to own the QQQ versus QQQY? Because a lot of people ask that. Intrinsic value. This is pretty simple. Intrinsic, it's basically the difference between the strike and the underlying price. So you're taking the automatic risk of the difference, of that gap right away. So when you sell in the money, that amount in the money is your intrinsic value. So we covered the percentage that we were in the money, but the actual amount we're in the money is 22.42 in this example. So that's pretty much the gap, right? That's the intrinsic value. The extrinsic value is total premium paid minus intrinsic value. And extrinsic value basically represents what you get for your risk, for risking the time, your money, etc. And it's also based obviously on the implied volatility and the interest of the transaction. So in this example, the open price was $64. The intrinsic value of that was $22.42, and the difference is $41.58. Right next to that, I have intrinsic income, which takes the extrinsic value, which is basically the extrinsic trade price, times the contracts times 100. And that's how much they made on extrinsic income. Next to that, I have the sell to open, which all that is, it's the total premium times the contracts times 100. So how much they made, when they open that position. And then the buy to close, same thing. It takes the close price times contracts times 100. So in that example, you saw that the close price was greater. Therefore, the buy to close is greater than the sell to open, which profit loss would end in a red position too, a red debit, because we had a loss of 1.3 million in that example. Running total. Similar to the last spreadsheet, this is just the running total. Starting at the top, we have we start with 99,000, and then we add, the next day, and we add the next day, and that's just the running total for the month. So we can see where we stand for the month. And then cash and treasuries, pretty straightforward. Again, it's just cash, which changes as new outstanding shares come and go. And then treasuries changes as they add cash to the treasury positions, or if needed, pull from the treasuries to use for cash. And then we covered the change on the other sheet, same thing. It's just change day to day. And obviously net assets is the total of cash and treasuries. This tab is, the same thing as the other, which it covers the intrinsic net, the extrinsic net total, and then the all income. The intrinsic net at the top part is actually net of losses. So as you can see, they're in the hole. And then obviously to the right, it shows how much it would be for 100% payout versus a 90% payout using the outstanding shares right below that. This is a formula pulled from the other tab. And then it shows what the lowest distribution could be versus the highest. And in this example, typically the all income represents the highest. But since all income is picking up losses, we're in a rare position here where we're at a loss. So this formula doesn't make any sense because it's earlier in the month, but typically the highest distribution shows based on all income, which is always greater than the extrinsic. Not always, but most of the time. QQQY just shows the price, and then this has a different breakdown. This is intrinsic income when the position's opened, extrinsic income, when the position's open, and then premium outgo, which represents losses. So you can actually see that full breakdown. And then this I wouldn't worry about. It's just me making sure the price at X date, it matches the movement and how much premium we earned. This is kind of like a testing thing I'm doing. Last but not least, the month end tab. This is the newer edition. I'm going to break it down at the end of each month. I'm going to show how much intrinsic income was made, extrinsic income, losses had to pay out, net income, outstanding shares, total income per share, and then how much they paid out from that income. And then the last column, which most important to me, is the NAV reserve. How much did they leave left for the NAV? So if they made a total income of 95 cents and they paid out 93, okay, great. They left something for the NAV. They left something for some capital appreciation. Or if they paid 95 cents, okay, well, at least they didn't take from capital. But if the distribution is greater than total income per share, then that's going to be return on capital. But November was a really good month, so we ended, all of the distribution was paid from options premium. And then even we had some left over that they could leave in the NAV. Again, this is based on my calculations, of course. And my calculations calculate, month to month, or I'll say deck date to deck date. So anyway, so that's the summary of both of these files. I'm sorry, I was combining these because I thought it would be a pretty quick video, and ended up being a pretty long video, or else I would have done them separate. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it, because a lot of you watch, I believe, both of the videos. So hopefully, you just get it done in one shot. If I need to split it out later, I will, but not anytime soon. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this content. Hope you learned from the spreadsheet review. If you did, let me know by clicking like. If not, leave a question in the comments and I could probably answer it. Or feel free to join my Discord. We just talk about, retiring on dividends. And by the way, if you get a message by someone that looks like me, it's not me. It's a scammer. They're everywhere, unfortunately. So please ignore, please block, please report, and then they will be booted. But yeah, that's all I got. I'll attach this video to the daily holdings videos that I post, and hopefully it helps you guys out. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Later.